I think it's not so unusual that we sometimes get to hate somebody so much that we wish an ill for them. In Korea, we would sometimes say, 귀신은 저놈 안 잡아가고 뭐하나? Meaning, why hasn't the ghost got him already? But not many of us would get so hateful as to seek to put spell on, to seriously curse the person you dislike. If nothing else, in Korean shamanism, they say delving into the realm of cursing is never free, that the one who initiated the curse would have to pay a dear price oneself. After all, karma is one of the backbones of the East Asian philosophy. But hate or greed can sometimes make us blind, and take any means regardless of the consequence. Today, we are reading stories about curse and its aftermath. It's the theme I already dealt with a couple of times. If you missed them, I'll leave the links in the description and at the corner of the screen. So, here are 4 allegedly true stories about the dark and creepy art of curse. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by a host, Anthony. My friend is an IT developer, and during the first surge of mobile game market, he used to run a successful startup himself. I'll call him Kim for the sake of the story. They made a significant success with their first release, and it was about when they were pushing for the second one. One staff, a developer, decided to quit even though Kim offered him another small amount of raise. Could happen. IT business is always rather dynamic after all. Problem was, for the following months, more developers left one by one, and even from the lesser positions too. Judging by their positive expression as they gave their notice, Kim suspected they all got a better offer from somewhere else. It inevitably slowed down the drive for their second release. One evening, he was on his way back home, deep in thoughts and worries about the recent progress. Then he saw a little fortune-teller's tent on the side of the road. Normally he would have walked right past, but given the state he was in that moment, he walked in there. The fortune-teller was some 40-50 looking middle-aged woman, but her grey hair made her look older than she should be. Even before Kim could talk what his issues were, she already commented, "If your business were a ball, it has a hole. No wonder it's leaking all the time." Kim was of course surprised. "One of your men has been encouraging others to quit and move to other company. All to one particular company," fortune-teller continued.
"But why is that? I treated my employees fairly, if not generously, and my business still has potential to grow too,"
Kim said.
"The problem does not lie with you. One particular person planned this from the beginning."
Unfortunately, she couldn't pinpoint who that was, and concluded with telling Kim to check on his company's financial statement. She said she wouldn't take a fee since Kim was in such a tricky situation. But fully knowing that one always has to pay for the shaman or fortune-teller's service, he insisted paying her. And the moment she took the money, she dropped,
"It's a man in his 40s.
Well, most of staffs in his company were men in 40s. The following day, 2 more staffs gave their notice. Kim persuaded them with a promise of promotion, but they didn't take it in the end. It was still some time later that Kim reminded himself of the fortune-tellers advising him to check the financial statement. When he finally did, he indeed found every staff that had left found a new position in one particular company, and when he digged more information about that company, he found one of his former developers were registered as the executive director. Probably from the shock and stress, he suffered a brain hemorrhage shortly afterwards, and it rendered his left side paralyzed. He sought a way to sue the executive director guy, but it dragged on over a year. Meanwhile, the rest of the core developers continued to leave his company, and the investors withdrew the funding when the second release failed to materialize as the result. In the end, he had to close his business. It was all carefully planned by the competitor to kill Kim's business. Out of desperation, Kim sought the fortune teller again. And once again, she said even before he said anything, "It's about a legal issue this time." But soon her face got darker. "But that's not the biggest issue you have. They've put a spell on you. A curse. Aren't you having a health issue now?" Kim told her he had a brain hemorrhage and his left side was not what it used to be. "It's the curse, I'm afraid."
But what can I do then? I want revenge.
"No need for you to do anything. The business of your foe wouldn't last long either. Thank God one of your ancestors is protecting you as a guardian angel, and you were spared from the worst blow from the curse." Then she gave a quick glance over Kim's shoulder and said, "Your foe won't be quite as lucky. A disaster shall strike, bad enough that you wouldn't need to feel to have a personal revenge anymore." Subsequently, Kim won his legal case, and the financial compensation was enough to pay all the debt to the investors. Losing his own business was bitter, but he was still a capable IT developer and could find a job by a large company. A few years passed. He recovered from the paralysis on his left side for the most part. Above all, he didn't need to keep much grudge about the guy who plotted the downfall of his company after all. After having to pay Kim a large sum of penalty, the foe's business also collapsed. Unlike Kim, who faced the fall of business honorably, he ran away. But a debtor traced him down, and he was found dead with numerous stab wounds. Strangely, only on the left side of his body. Myung joined a book club. She was not the most sociable type and had a hard time to mingle on the first day at the club. Then a guy chatted her up and helped her to mingle with other club members. He was friendly and articulate, and Myung quickly became close to him, enough to go to have dinner or drink together after the weekly club meeting. The guy often gifted a flower to Myung, nothing grand, a single rose, a tulip, or a small posy. Myung found it a bit curious at first because they were not anywhere in a romantic term, but he just explained it away it was because he was a florist and worked for a big flower shop in town. One strange quirk was he asked Myung to pay for the flower, not a fair price, but a token like a penny or two. He said it was because of a little superstition among florists that giving away flower for free could be unlucky. It all sounded odd to Myung, but she liked flower and gradually got used to this weird routine. Then one day, Myung had an occasion to buy a big bouquet. She thought it would be a friendly gesture to order it from the guy's shop. But when she visited a big flower shop in town, the owner said she didn't have any stuff by the guy's name or description.
Myung got suspicious. Things that he had been talking light-heartedly all started to look more than just weird. Why did he give her flower almost every time they met? And why did he ask for a token for a return? It felt all too uncomfortable that she went to seek a shaman with a flower and the guy's photo. I think he's handing you over his bad energy and misfortune with those flowers. Normally you can't simply give away your misfortune to others, but you can if somebody formally agrees to buy it off of your hand, regardless of the amount, Shaman said, and confirmed there were lots of dark energy attached to the flower Myung brought with. And the bad energy seems to have smeared onto your head and hands too. Aren't you suffering some pain or heaviness these days? Shaman said. Maybe it was just a confirmation bias, but Myung indeed suffered severe migraines and nightmares in recent weeks. Shaman told her to bring all the flowers or any objects she received from the guy. They would burn them off with a little ritual. Myung promptly did. Among the things she received from the guy included a book, and she got chills when the shaman carefully flipped through the book and found a dry flower carefully concealed under the dust jacket. Shaman burnt everything with a little chant. Myung, of course, quitted the book club. And yet, for 3 months, the guy kept messaging her things like when they were going to meet again, if she didn't want another posy of flowers for the sunny spring day. Eventually, Myung had to change her number before she could get freed from the spooky man. In 2009, I found a summer part-time work by the beach in Pohang City. The job was renting swimming rings and beach parasols to the bathers by the daytime and keeping an eye on the corner shop by the night. The biggest advantage for me was they offered food and lodging too. It was like a month-long getaway plus work. My boss's main business was running holiday cottages. It was a whole complex with several cottages, a game arcade, and a corner shop. Swimming ring and parasol renting was just a part of the business. Living in his household day to day for a month, I got very close to his entire family. His wife wasn't quite a full-blown shaman, but seemed to work as a fortune teller on the side, and 2 teenage boys and a preteen daughter completed a family. Oops, I forgot the family dog Pongsil. Being a Jindo breed, it took some time to get friendly with her. I was bitten twice, but eventually she realized I was a part of the household and kept me a good company for the rest of the summer. I had such a wonderful time there. I returned to work for them the following summer too. By then I really felt like a part of the family. But all wasn't well. One day, the second son of the family came back from school, crying. The back of his jacket was all shredded to ribbons. He said he just dozed off on his desk during lunchtime, and a mate, close enough to be considered a friend, took out a stationery knife and cut up his back. Thankfully, the blade only cut the jacket, not his skin, but it still left him shocked. Just 3 days later, this time the first son tried to open the classroom door that was left locked. It broke the glass of the door, and its sharp shards fell on his legs. The cuts were so bad that they required 42 stitches. I made a passing comment to the boy's mother, quite forgetting she was no normal lady. Gosh, one thing after another. It feels like we are cursed or something. The stare she gave to me. God, it was so sharp that it felt like penetrating through my skull. I thought I heard her saying under her breath, "Where the heck is it?" but didn't quite understand what she meant. Following day, the daughter of the family cried from the morning that she didn't want to go to school. Apparently, she had a nightmare in which she saw her entire family and me hanging from the ceiling, dead. It was so vivid and real that it left the little girl distressed, and now she was refusing to go to school. It took her mother's charismatic force to push her to go to school anyway. It was only when the children left for school that she told me that one of the dogs my boss bred, they kept dogs to sell while Pongsil, the white Jindo dog, was the family pet, gave birth to 6 pups a few days prior. And this morning, when she went to feed them, all the pups were dead. It rained that day. Naturally, there weren't many bathers to the beach, and I was having an easy day. She called me from the second-floor balcony of one of the holiday cottages. When I went up, she pointed to the roof of the corner shop building. At first, I didn't know what I was supposed to see, but soon realized there was a pair of white shoes on the roof right above the entrance to the building. "That's it," she said, but I still didn't know what she meant. She soon summoned her husband and me and told us to take out a ladder and bring down the shoes on the roof. I still thought it was just a result of young people playing a prank to each other, throwing your friend's shoes up on the roof and force him to walk barefooted or something like that. But the moment I actually went up the roof and saw the shoes up close, I felt inexplicable chill at the back of my neck, because from their position, it clearly looked somebody intentionally left them right there. When I took them down, boss's wife said, "Now look," and pulled out insoles from the right shoe. 6 of them. She explained it was a form of a curse. If one puts a pair of shoes on the roof above the entrance of a house with their toes pointing outwards, the household will lose its inhabitants as many as the number of insoles. My boss lost temper and shouted what a beast she should be playing this dirty. He knew who would be doing such a thing: the owner of the land. Apparently, the land my boss built his business on was not his. He rented a plot which used to be just a barren land and single-handedly built up a building at a time and established a business. But earlier that year, the landlady came and said she wanted to terminate the rent, that she wanted to run her own business there now. Well, there was nothing much my boss could do. What he couldn't take was her demand that he leave all the buildings and facilities to her too. The conflict escalated to a legal battle, and they were now waiting for the trial. The lawyer of my boss was pretty sure that they had the upper hand, and the landlady should know that too. Probably that was why she turned to a black magic. Now, I got upset just as much too. It wasn't just that I felt like a part of the family, but for the fact the bitch landlady targeted 6 people in the household. My boss's family had 5 people. Then, the 6th target must have been me. Boss's wife speculated that we escaped the worst because the poor 6 puppies met their ends in the place of 6 people. But you think you can play such a trick and keep your hands clean? Said boss's wife with a cold smile. That evening, boss's wife fed Pongsil, the family dog, a chunk of meat instead of the usual dog food. And then she gave me a weird instruction that I should dig a little hole on the empty plot, make some fire, burn the cursed shoes and insoles together with a handful of red beans and a snip of Pongsil's white hair. I had no idea what this was all for, but did as I was told anyway. Later that night, Pongsil barked ferociously. I mean, she could be quite feisty, but that night was something else. I went to check on her and found she was barking towards a certain direction. Was it just my imagination that direction headed straight to the plot where I had the weird bonfire? In the morning, the outside was under a thick veil of fog. I remembered how unusual Pongsil was the previous night and went to check on her first. Pongsil wasn't there. I walked around the neighborhood calling for Pongsil, and Pongsil ran out from a neighbor's house, the house I learned the day before to belong to the very landlady whom my boss was in dispute with. I picked Pongsil up and ran back. Later in the morning, I told the boss's wife what had happened with Pongsil. And she just calmly rubbed Pongsil's back and said, "So you've done your job. Good girl." I don't exactly know what that was all about or what really happened. Having to keep my position in the corner shop all day long, all I could pick up was bits from the neighbors' chit-chat. Apparently, the landlady was hospitalized. I hear her son beat her, but who knows what the issue was or if it had anything to do with the whole saga about the curse. Later that year, I started my military service and couldn't return to the summer job the following year. But I kept contact with the boss, and I hear he subsequently won the legal case against the landlady and found a new plot nearby to carry on with his business. My older brother was studious from when he was little. Even his gang of friends was those who attended the same cram school as his. His best friend, I'll just call him Cheolsu for the sake of the story. He lived in the same apartment block, so brother and Cheolsu were together practically all day every day. Naturally, the two families got acquainted too. Then, since when we didn't see much of Cheolsu, it was before the time of mobile and internet, so it wasn't as easy to keep the contact. The fact that it was during summer vacation didn't help either. One evening, brother was on the way back from cram school by himself without the trusty body Cheolsu, and he ran into Cheolsu's mom. She looked markedly in a poor state, with her hair bunched up in a messy bun. She was so absent-minded that she didn't even recognize brother's greeting to her at first. But as soon as she saw my brother, she put on an artificial smile. "It is you, so polite as usual. Oh, wait, I have something for you," she said, and produced an eraser from her pocket. "It's a gift from me. Don't lose it and use it well." The eraser didn't even look brand new, but brother thanked her anyway and popped it in his pencil case. A few days passed, and brother got a dream. His bestie Cheolsu was there, crying, crouched down. "I've got so much I'd like to do, but I can't do them anymore. It's unfair, it's unfair." Brother had never seen Cheolsu in such a state, and put his hand on Cheolsu's back to console him. Cheolsu snatched up the hand.
His face turned all of a sudden all cold and serious.
You're gonna help me, aren't you?
He wasn't asking a favor, but downright demanding. Brother felt uncomfortable and tried to free his hand, but Cheolsu wouldn't let it go, and just repeated,
You're gonna help me.
And the voice got slower and deeper every time.
You're gonna help me. You're gonna help me.
You're gonna help me.
It scared Brother. He turned around and ran away, but he couldn't really, as if he was stuck in an invisible, thick, gooey substance. He looked back at Cheolsu, and he was standing there with a wide smile. What a creepy dream. At first, Brother took it as just a dream, but when the same dream recurred night after night, it gradually felt like gnawing away his vitality bit by bit. And one day, while we were just watching TV, Brother fainted. I called Mom at her work first thing, but didn't know what more I could do. When Brother got around shortly afterwards, he asked me to fetch his pencil case. What a weird request from somebody who had just fainted, but I guess I was so panicked that I didn't even think that. Brother took out an eraser from the pencil case and ripped off its wrapping. And there, he found a tiny little piece of paper carefully folded up. Was that what people call talisman? Brother dropped the whole thing to the floor and started retching. I still didn't have any idea as what was going on, and just panicked more that my brother must be seriously ill. I thought it must be Mom and ran to open the door. My brother stopped me.
Mom would use her key. That can't be Mom,
Brother said in a low voice. And indeed.
Hello, it's me, Cheolsu's mom. Anybody home?
I'd known Cheolsu's mother for years by then, but never felt such a threatening vibe from her voice.
Isn't anybody in?
A few seconds of silence after the impatient knocks. And then she started kicking the door with all her might. Brother pulled my shirt and said,
let's hide in the wardrobe.
And we tiptoed to the storage room. But alas, we didn't consider that the storage room had a window facing the hallway, and there she was, pushing her face right against the little window. I always thought her as a calm and pretty lady, but now her face with eyes rolling about wildly looked like that of a predator eyeing on its prey. Her lips alone were smiling wide.
I knew you were there. Come, open the door for me,
she said. Brother started throwing up under her scary gaze.
You're unwell, aren't you? So you are keeping the eraser I gave you?
Her voice sounded almost delighted. By then I was a mess with the tears and snot, and Brother dragged me out.
Where are you going? Come back! Open the door!
The woman screeched. We called Mom again, but her colleague only told us she should be already on her way. All the while, the mad woman kept babbling on, stuck to the window. Most of them sounded like a curse on my brother. You should be ill. You must get ill. You have to die so that my boy can live.
Her half-screaming, half-babbling carried on for a good half an hour, until our next-door neighbor came out to check what the commotion was about and shouted Chulsu's mom away. When Mom finally came home, she got, of course, outraged with what Chulsu's mom did and promptly made a report to the police. Then Mom took the eraser and the talisman that was hidden there and brought them to a shaman. The first reaction from the shaman seeing those was a loud swears. "It's not even just a curse! It's to steal your son's life!" the shaman said. Such a black magic rooted back hundreds of years, she explained. It was designed to steal life from other person, to lengthen your own. You basically have to give an object that belonged to you together with a talisman and make sure the target keep it near him or her. Shaman burnt the eraser and the talisman off, and that was the end of the horrible day. It was only later we could piece together what exactly happened. Chulsu, my brother's bestie, had already suffered some form of cancer. It was deemed he was cured and returned to normal life. But shortly before the summer vacation, the cancer returned and more vicious than before. And so, his mom targeted my brother, a healthy, smart boy. At the police interrogation, she also confessed she was carrying a knife with her when she banged on our door. Should her curse have not worked, she was very much intending to end my brother with her own hand. I hear Chulsu succumbed to cancer a few years later. Hi, it's Anton here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I guess today's collection was more about the curse itself than the karma it ensued. Have you known somebody you hated so much that you would have liked to put a curse on if you could? Honestly, I don't easily forget and forgive, so I could have very much done that if the knowledge of curse were readily available. Though, nowadays, I tend to just avoid somebody I dislike before I let myself emotionally tangled up. Probably that's a case of getting older and wiser. If you enjoyed my work, please give it a thumbs up and a comment, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. If you are a fan of weird, spooky stories, I'm sure you'll have a good time here. If you'd support me more directly, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link's in the description, and there's super thanks option here on YouTube for a small donation too. Thank you. Until next Sunday, stay safe and take care.